traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. If you're looking for the latest news, insight into what it means, and the sharpest opinion, there's only one station in Chicago where you can turn, and it's this one. We're AM 560, The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. I thought Hanover Park, Illinois took the cake when they got caught having a person in this country illegally on their police force. Well, that's before he had, you remember, he had overstayed his visa by 10 years, a national of Montenegro. That was before Coldwater, Kansas had a local election, and Mayor Jose Ceballos was victorious.
The mayor of Coldwater accused of election fraud. The charges come hours after he secured a second term in office. Attorney General Chris Kobach charged Mayor Jose Joe Ceballos with 6 felonies, 3 counts each of voting without being qualified and election perjury. Kobach claims Ceballos is lawfully living in the U.S. but is a citizen of Mexico, making him ineligible to vote. The AG alleges the mayor illegally cast ballots in the August 2024 primary and November 2022 and 2023 general elections.
In large part, our system right now is based on trust. Trust that when the person signed the registration or signs the poll books saying that he's a qualified elector or that he is a United States citizen, that the person is telling the truth.
We reached out to Mayor Ceballos for comment, but have not heard back yet. The Coldwater City Council, though, released a statement on social media saying the mayor called them in for a special meeting over the noon hour to, quote, discuss recent events that have transpired with the Kansas Attorney General's office. While the recent allegations involving the mayor are understandably concerning, we will allow the proper legal process to take its course before making any further comments, unquote. Ceballos is expected to be in court for his first appearance on December 3rd.
Can't wait. Oh, and by the way, voter fraud is fiction. That doesn't happen in America. That's what the left says all the time. Ken Blackwell, former mayor of Cincinnati, also served as Deputy Undersecretary at HUD and as Ohio State Secretary of State, joins us now. Ken, thanks for being with us again. Appreciate it.
Always good to be with you, sir.
So, Ken, I mean, not that we need to continue piling on the evidence. Some stories are more shocking than others. But, you know, given your experience as a Secretary of State, voter fraud is a myth. Please respond.
Yeah, there is an all-out assault on citizenship, and the citizenship and in combination with free and fair elections are the foundation of our constitutional republic. And so when you have this citizenship fraud and when you don't have a way of tightening the chain of custody of ballots and or verifying a person is who they claim to be, you have a direct threat to our constitutional republic. And of course, this is not folly. This is not, fiction. This is a real problem that deserves our attention and corrective action.
And Ohio has come a long way. I mean, from you to present day with Frank LaRose, there's been a real serious effort made to maintain the vote accuracy of the voter rolls, to clean up the voter rolls on a regular basis. But that, of course, that doesn't happen in every state, Illinois being one of them. And this is where the Department of Justice has attempted to intercede and essentially challenge states to abide their own rules and regulations with respect to maintaining the integrity of the voter rolls.
Oh, absolutely. And look, we are in the midst of a constitutional crisis that is reflected not only in how we protect or fail to protect the integrity of citizenship, but we are now facing a question as to whether or not we are frozen in a historic moment where, in fact, the the Voting Rights Act, for instance, was created to influence the drawing of districts, has in fact been transformed from a tool of protecting individual rights and access to the ballot box to something that is now a travesty that locks us into saying that one's racial identity is a honest projection and predictor of one's political behavior, which basically says that the Voting Rights Act now has become something that aids and abets locking us into group behavior as opposed to respecting individual rights. I mean,
well, that was that. No, I mean that's the Louisiana case that was just argued before the Supreme Court, as you know, and it was the opinion of Justices Sotomayor and Ketanji Brown Jackson that if you don't have a majority black district in terms of the electorate, then you'll never get a black elected official. That's the only way, because apparently a majority of whites and other races are racist, and they would never elect a black person on their own merits.
Yeah, the advocates of this redistricting effort, said that these maps protect voting rights. In reality, it transforms the Voting Rights Act into a tool for partisan gerrymandering, forcing states to engineer partisan districts under the guise of racial equality. It is just pure folly, and it's a direct assault on the individuality of citizens of all colors and races. And so, look, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, I wanted to fold into a little bit more into this. I mean, because this should never be forgotten. KBJ, Ketanji Brown Jackson, comparing black people to disabled people who don't have equal access to the voting booth.
It is crazy. Look, my identity isn't a ballot prediction. It's the story of my life, and it is. Justice isn't about engineering sameness. It's about guaranteeing the civil rights that every citizen should be treated as an individual. And that's what the essence of our constitutional republic and American freedom is all about. We're not carbon copies of one another. We are individuals. Our rights don't come from government and fake prescriptions. Our rights are grants, gifts from God, not grants from government. And these liberals on the Supreme Court are locked into a transformational effort to convert our constitutional republic to something other than what the founders intended it to be.
So what do you think of this mid-decade redistricting competition that's going on from Texas to California to Florida to perhaps Indiana? What's your perspective on that?
Well, I sort of agree with the case that's before the Supreme Court being made by the state of Louisiana. We can't ask the court to decide whether race can, or we ask the court to decide whether race can continue to serve as a lawful proxy for political identity. And if, in fact, the Supreme Court comes down on what I consider to be the right side of this, we, in fact, will no longer make these crazy configurations of districts to protect the Democrat Party stranglehold on certain districts. The reality is that, over the course of history, blacks have been Republican, they've been Democrats. You cannot lock us into a political bloc that destroys our individual rights. And so I think the Supreme Court, probably on a pretty tight vote, is going to come down on the side of doing away with this nonsense.
Well, on the topic of the Supreme Court, former AG Eric Holder, you remember him, he was on a leftist podcast talking about the Supreme Court. And, you know, while the lower courts, the ones that are issuing injunctions against Trump administration initiatives, they're doing a great job. The Supreme Court isn't. So you know what that means when you're a leftist, that it has to be destroyed.
I think the Supreme Court is a broken institution. And it's something that has to be, I think, a part of the national conversation in 26 and in 28. What are we going to do about the Supreme Court? And I think that we have to think about, again, talking about the acquisition and the use of power. If there is a Democratic trifecta in 2028, and I think the possibility of that is pretty good, Supreme Court reform is something that has to be considered. Term limits, I think, at a minimum, potentially expanding the court is something I think that also should be considered. We cannot leave in place without a discussion, at least, and I think without substantive reforms being put in place, this Supreme Court as it is presently constituted.
Yeah, we need an expansion. We need term limits. We need to figure out ways to keep anybody who is who is right of Eric Holder off the court, Ken.
Yeah, look, the one thing we should do is celebrate the transparency of Eric. He just laid out there. He just laid out there their game plan to change the Supreme Court, probably to give Washington D.C. electoral college votes, and as a consequence, sort of lock us into, you know, the leftist agenda of Eric and now the more radical Democratic Party that's emerging in our country today. There's a real battle. There's a real battle going on within the Democrat Party, and I think it's going to be fascinating to see where they net out. And Republicans better be ready to fight for our constitutional republic and a recognition that in 250 years we are the most viable constitutional democratic republic in the history of the world.
Very good. A former mayor of Cincinnati, former Ohio Secretary of State, also served as Deputy Undersecretary at HUD. He is Ken Blackwell. Ken, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate it.
God bless you, baby. Bye-bye.
And Ken joined us on the Turnkey.Pro answer line.
It's like a hot, steaming cup of information to start your day. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Are you a small business with just a couple of computers? Or maybe 50? Then